The zombie's jaw unhinged 3 inches from Corey Voss's face, strings of blackened saliva stretching between rotted teeth. He could smell its sweet decay mixed with copper, like meat left in summer sun. His shoulder screamed where another one had already bitten through his jacket, through skin, probably through the muscle that would have let him push this thing away. Corey, no. Lila Carter's scream cut off as claws raked her forearm, 3 parallel gashes blooming red through her torn sleeve. He shoved her backward with his good arm, felt her stumble against a burned-out car. 23 days since the outbreak, 3 days since they'd run out of food, 6 hours since they'd made the stupid decision to leave their hiding spot for supplies. The horde closed in a wall of gray flesh and empty eyes, reflecting the orange glow of fires. Nobody was alive to put out anymore. "Stay down," he said, and his voice came out strange, soft, like they were back in her parents' kitchen, and he was telling her the cookies were ready. Not that this was it, not that he was about to. Teeth sank deeper. The world tilted sideways, went dark at the edges. The last thing he heard was Lila screaming his name. Lila woke to silk against her cheek in sunlight, cutting through curtains she'd thrown away 3 weeks ago. She sat up so fast the room spun. Her hands flew to her arm's smooth skin. No gashes. The bite mark on her shoulder from when she'd tried to pull Corey away? Gone. She pressed her fingers into the spot anyway, expecting pain, finding nothing but the small scar from when she'd fallen off her bike at age 9. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. The screen read, June 15th, 7:42 a.m., 30 days before the outbreak. Lila's hands started shaking. She looked down at them, clean nails. No dried blood caked underneath. No dirt from sleeping in abandoned buildings. No calluses from gripping a crowbar for 3 weeks straight. She ran to the window. The mansion spread below her, white colonial, wraparound porch, her mother's garden boxes already planted with tomatoes that wouldn't bear fruit for another month. In the driveway, her father's truck sat parked beside her mother's sedan, both vehicles intact, unbloodied, windows unbroken. And past the main house, tucked behind the garden, the guest cottage where Corey had lived since he was 12. Corey. Lila pressed her forehead against the glass, breathing too fast. He'd died. She'd felt his body go slack in her arms while zombies tore at them both. She'd died seconds later, probably, though she didn't remember that part. Just darkness, cold, nothing. But if she was here, if it was June 15th again, her door crashed open. Lila Marie Carter, you better not still be in bed. Your father and I have been up since. Her mother stopped mid-sentence, one hand on the doorframe, still wearing her gardening gloves. Elena Carter, age 49, 5'4", too much energy for any single person. Honey, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Lila stared at her. Her mother's face was smooth, unlined by the terror that had carved itself there in the last timeline. Her hair was still dark brown, not the gray it had turned after watching half their neighborhood get eaten in the first week. Mom, Lila said, and her voice cracked. What day is it? Elena pulled off her gloves, frowning as she crossed to the bed. June 15th. Are you feeling okay? You were out late last night with Corey. Did you two drink? Because I know you're adults, but you're still living under our roof, and where's Dad? Downstairs having coffee and probably eating all the muffins I specifically told him were for Lila? Seriously, what's going on? Lila grabbed her mother's hand. The skin was warm, solid, real. I need you to listen to me. I know this sounds insane, but I need you to trust me. We have 30 days to prepare for something catastrophic. We need supplies, food, water, medical equipment. We need to fortify the house. We need to bring Corey back here where it's safe. Elena's frown deepened. She pressed her palm to Lila's forehead. You don't have a fever. Did you hit your head? Marcus. She called toward the hallway. Marcus, get up here. Mom, please. Honey, I think you had a nightmare. A bad one, clearly, but it wasn't a nightmare. Lila's voice came out harder than she intended. She stood up, pacing to the window and back. On July 15th, there's going to be an outbreak. A virus. People are going to die, a lot of people. Almost everyone. The ones who don't die become something else, something that hunts. And we're not going to survive it unless we prepare now. Her father appeared in the doorway, coffee mug in hand. Marcus Carter, former Army Ranger, built like he could still haul 100-pound packs through mountains. What's this about an outbreak? Lila had a bad dream, Elena said, but her voice wavered. She was looking at Lila differently now, not like she was crazy, but like she was genuinely frightened. It wasn't a dream. Lila met her father's eyes. Dad, you know that feeling you told me about? The one you got in Afghanistan before the IED hit your convoy? The one that made you yell at everyone to stop even though command was screaming at you to keep moving? Marcus went very still. That feeling saved your unit. You told me you couldn't explain it. You just knew something was wrong. Lila wrapped her arms around herself. I have that feeling now. Except I don't just know something's wrong, I remember it. I remember all of it. The outbreak, the chaos, watching neighbors turn into monsters. I remember dying. Her voice broke. I remember Corey dying to save me. The room went quiet except for the ceiling fan's lazy rotation overhead. Marcus set down his coffee mug. Lila, if this is some kind of... You have a scar on your left shoulder blade from shrapnel, Lila interrupted. You never told me about it, but I saw it once when I was 10 and you were changing shirts. You said you got it from falling off a ladder, but that's not true. It's from Afghanistan, and you lied because you didn't want me to know how close you came to dying. Her father's jaw tightened. Mom, you had a miscarriage between me and the baby brother I never got to meet. Nobody knows except you and Dad and your doctor. You were going to name him Thomas after your father. You keep his ultrasound photo in a box in your closet under your wedding dress. Elena's hand flew to her mouth. I don't know how I know these things, Lila said. Her hands were still shaking. But I do, and I know what's coming. So please, please trust me. We don't have much time. Marcus and Elena looked at each other, that silent communication that came from 25 years of marriage. Finally, Marcus nodded once. What do you need? Lila's hands shook as she pulled up her laptop, fingers fumbling over the keyboard. She'd made a list in her head during the first outbreak, all the things they'd needed and couldn't find. Now she had money, internet access, and 30 days. We'll need food, she started, pulling up a bulk supplier website. Long-term storage food. Not just canned goods, freeze-dried meals, rice, beans, pasta, flour, sugar, salt, oil. Enough for. She paused, doing math. 4 people minimum. Probably more if others showed up. 6 months to start. Maybe a year if we can afford it. Her father peered over her shoulder. That's a lot of food, Lila. What about fresh? Nothing fresh lasts. We'll need gardening supplies too, seeds, soil, grow lights for indoors, tools. Water, we need water storage and purification systems. She was typing faster now, adding items to a cart. Medical supplies, antibiotics, bandages, surgical equipment if we can get it, pain medication, vitamins. Surgical equipment? Her mother asked weakly. Lila didn't look up. People get hurt. Hospitals won't be operating. She could feel her parents exchanging another look behind her, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. In her mind, she was back in that abandoned grocery store, Corey bleeding from a gash on his leg, both of them scrambling for anything to stop the infection that would kill him before the zombies did. They'd found expired aspirin and a mostly clean t-shirt to use as a bandage. He died anyway. Not from the infection, they'd run out of time before that could finish the job. Security, she said, moving to another tab. We need to reinforce the fence. Steel, not wood. At least 8 feet high, preferably 10. We need bulletproof glass for the windows or metal shutters. Locks, lots of locks. Motion sensors. Cameras. Lila, that's going to cost... I don't care what it costs. She spun around in her chair. Do we have it or not? Marcus ran a hand over his face. The construction company's doing well. Your mother's shop, too. We have savings, and I can probably liquidate some investments if needed. But honey, you're talking about... I'm talking about staying alive. Lila stood up. I'm talking about not watching everyone I love die this time. The room went silent again. Elena moved first, crossing to pull Lila into a hug. She smelled like jasmine and soil, the same way she always had. Okay, she said quietly. Okay, baby. We'll figure it out, whatever you need. Lila hugged her back, squeezing hard enough that her arms hurt. I need Corey here. I need him safe. Then call him, her father said. He'd picked up his phone. I'll start making calls about the fence and windows. Elena, you handle the food orders, get whatever Lila says. I don't care if the neighbors think we've lost our minds. Lila's phone sat on her desk. She'd texted Corey last night in this timeline something stupid about meeting for coffee tomorrow. He'd replied with a thumbs-up emoji. She picked up the phone and called instead. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then, Lila? Hey, everything okay? It's pretty early. His voice hit her like a physical thing, warm and rough with sleep and alive. So completely alive. Lila's throat closed up. Lila? Concern crept into his tone. Talk to me. What's wrong? I need you to come over, she managed. Right now. Don't ask questions. Just please come over. Silence on the other end. Then, I'm already putting on shoes. Be there in 15. He didn't ask why, didn't push. That was Corey if she needed him. He came. Lila hung up and sat on the edge of her bed, counting breaths. 15 minutes. She could hold it together for 15 minutes. Her mother appeared in the doorway again, this time holding a cup of tea. Here, drink this. I don't want. Drink it anyway. Elena sat beside her, pressing the warm mug into Lila's hands. You're in shock. Whatever you saw or experienced or remembered, it was traumatic enough to change you. I can see it in your eyes. You're not the same girl who went to sleep last night. Lila stared into the tea. I watched people die, Mom. I watched you and Dad. She cut herself off, swallowing hard. But we're here now, Elena said softly. And if what you're saying is true, if we really do have 30 days, then we're going to use every single one of them. Your father might look calm, but I know him, he's already planning. And when Corey gets here, we'll plan together. All of us. What if I'm wrong? The words came out small. What if nothing happens, and we spend all this money and ruin the house, and I'm just crazy? Elena set down her own untouched tea and turned to face Lila fully. Honey, I've known you your entire life. I was there when you were born, when you took your first steps, when you brought home straight A's, and when you brought home Corey for the first time. I know when you're lying. I know when you're scared. And I know when you're telling the truth. She took Lila's free hand. You're telling the truth right now. I don't understand it, but I believe you. Lila set down the tea before she dropped it, then buried her face in her mother's shoulder and finally let herself cry. Corey's truck pulled into the driveway 13 minutes later. Lila heard it from her bedroom window, the rumble of his old Chevy, the one he'd rebuilt himself in high school, the one that somehow ran perfectly despite being 20 years old and held together mostly by prayer and stubbornness. She was downstairs before he'd even turned off the engine. He climbed out of the truck, looking worried, hair sticking up on one side, wearing sweatpants and a faded t-shirt from their high school's homecoming, keys still dangling from his hand. The moment he saw her face, he crossed the driveway in 3 long strides. What happened? He reached for her, hands hovering near her shoulders like he wasn't sure if he should touch her. Are you hurt? Did someone... Lila threw her arms around his neck and held on. For a moment, Corey stood frozen. Then his arms came around her waist, pulling her close. He was solid and warm and alive, heart beating steady against her cheek. He smelled like laundry detergent and coffee, not blood and rot. Hey, he said quietly. I'm here. Whatever it is, I'm here. She couldn't speak yet, could only hold on and count his heartbeats and remind herself this was real, he was real, they had time. Lila, you're scaring me a little, Corey said after a minute. His hand had moved to the back of her head, fingers tangled in her hair. Talk to me. I can't lose you again. The words came out muffled against his shoulder. I can't, I won't. Again? He pulled back just enough to look at her face. What do you mean again? Lila opened her mouth to explain, but couldn't figure out where to start. How do you tell someone you watched them die, that you felt their blood on your hands? That you've been carrying the weight of their death for what felt like years, even though it hasn't happened yet? Maybe we should go inside, Marcus said from the porch. He'd appeared without either of them noticing, still holding his coffee. This conversation probably shouldn't happen in the driveway. Corey looked between Lila and her father, confusion clear on his face, but he kept one arm around Lila's shoulders as they walked into the house, like he thought she might disappear if he let go. They gathered in the living room, Lila and Corey on the couch, her parents in the armchairs. The morning sun slanted through windows that would need to be replaced with bulletproof glass. Lila's laptop sat on the coffee table, still open to the bulk food supplier website. Okay, Corey said slowly. Is someone going to tell me what's going on? Because Lila calls me at 7 in the morning, sounding like the world's ending, and now everyone's looking at me like... He stopped. Like the world's ending. It is, Lila said. In 30 days. She told him everything. The outbreak starting in major cities, spreading faster than anyone could contain it. The grocery stores emptied in the first week. The emergency broadcasts that became more desperate and then stopped altogether. The neighbors who turned violent, then monstrous. The day Corey moved back to the mansion because his apartment building had been overrun. The weeks of hiding, rationing food, listening to screams getting closer. The day they ran out of supplies and decided to risk one final run to the store. The horde that found them. I felt you die, she said. Her voice had gone flat, emotionless. It was easier that way. You pushed me behind you, always trying to protect everyone, and they tore you apart while I screamed. Corey hadn't moved. His face had gone pale. But he was listening, really listening. In that way, he had where his whole attention focused down to a single point. Then I woke up this morning. Lila continued. June 15th. Everything reset. And I think I know this sounds insane, but I think I've been given a second chance to save you, to save all of us. The room stayed quiet. Elena had her hand over her mouth. Marcus was gripping his coffee mug hard enough that his knuckles had gone white. Corey finally spoke. What date did it start? The outbreak. July 15th. Morning. Started in New York and LA. Spread from there. By noon, it was in Chicago. By evening, Houston. It moved so fast. And you remember all of this. Not a question. Corey was studying her face. You remember 30 days of the end of the world. 23 days. That's how long we lasted. He nodded slowly. Then, I dreamed about it. Everyone turned to stare at him. Not the same way you're describing, Corey said. He was looking down at his hands now, turning them over like they belonged to someone else. But I've been having these dreams for about a week now. Nightmares, really. Running from something, hiding, fighting, and you were always there. He looked up at Lila. You were always dying in my dreams, different ways, but always dying, and I could never save you. Lila's breath caught. I thought it was just stress from work, Corey continued. Or maybe guilt about that fight we had last month. But every night, same thing. The world ending and me trying to keep you alive and failing. He paused. This morning I woke up with a list in my head. Supplies we'd need, places to fortify, things to stockpile. I was sitting at my kitchen table writing it all down when you called. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket and smoothed it out on the coffee table. Lila leaned forward to read it. The list matched hers almost exactly. So either we're both crazy, Corey said, or something impossible is happening, and we need to start planning. Marcus leaned back in his chair, running both hands through his hair. Jesus Christ! Marcus, Elena said automatically, then shook her head. Actually, no, that's appropriate. Jesus Christ is right. So, what do we do? Marcus asked, looking at Lila. You're the one who's lived through this before. You're in charge. The weight of that settled on Lila's shoulders responsibility, expectation, the chance to do it right this time. She straightened up. We start with the basics. Food, water, medical supplies, security. We turn this house into a fortress. We stay hidden, stay quiet, and we survive long enough to figure out if there's a way to stop this thing. And if there isn't? Elena asked. Then we survive anyway, Lila said. Because that's all we can do. Corey reached over and took her hand. His palm was warm, calloused from construction work. Solid, real. Then let's get started. 2. Preparation. The next 2 weeks blurred into a frenzy of activity. Marcus pulled permits for renovations, which wasn't technically a lie, though the city planner raised his eyebrows at the request for steel fencing and industrial-grade window reinforcements. You folks worried about burglars out here? He'd asked. Can't be too careful these days, Marcus had replied, which also wasn't technically a lie. The construction crew arrived on day 3 guys Marcus had worked with for years, who trusted him enough not to ask too many questions about why someone wanted their suburban mansion turned into a compound. They reinforced the existing fence posts with steel core beams, adding 2 additional feet of height. The new fencing went up in sections, vertical bars spaced close enough that nothing larger than a cat could squeeze through, topped with angled brackets that would make climbing nearly impossible. This is some serious security, the crew foreman commented, wiping sweat from his forehead. You planning to house the president or something? Marcus just handed him a beer and changed the subject. The windows were harder, bulletproof glass wasn't exactly available at the local hardware store, and special ordering it raised questions. Instead, Marcus compromised. Impact-resistant glass for the first floor, steel shutters that could be lowered from inside. Not perfect, but better than standard glass that would shatter at the first impact. Lila coordinated the supply orders from her laptop, multiple browser tabs open at once. She'd converted her bedroom into a command center lists taped to the walls, delivery schedules, inventory spreadsheets. The first floor basement had been empty before, used mostly for storage of holiday decorations and forgotten furniture. Now it was filling up with supplies. Day 5, 20 cases of MREs, 50 pounds of rice, 30 pounds of beans. Day 7, water purification system. 50-gallon drums, bottled water by the pallet. Day 9, first aid supplies, antibiotics, harder to get Corey knew a guy who knew a guy, pain medication, bandages, surgical thread. Day 12, solar generators, backup batteries, portable stove, propane tanks. The delivery drivers started recognizing the address. "You folks opening a restaurant or something?" one asked, hauling in another load of canned goods. "Something like that," Elena said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Corey had moved into the guest house on day 2, not that he'd really left since the morning Lila called him. He'd gone back to his apartment once, packed up everything that mattered, and handed his keys to the landlord with some excuse about family emergency. Now his truck sat in the Carter's driveway alongside his Camaro, the vintage one he'd been restoring since high school. He'd wanted to sell it to help pay for supplies, but Marcus had refused. "We might need reliable vehicles," he'd said. "Besides, if the world's ending, you should at least have your car." The guest house became their workshop. Corey and Marcus spent hours out there, organizing tools, checking equipment, making plans. Lila could see them sometimes through the window heads bent over blueprints, marking up diagrams of the property, discussing angles of defense and lines of sight. She tried not to think about why they needed lines of sight. Elena threw herself into cooking and canning. The kitchen became her domain, massive pots of tomato sauce bubbling on the stove, jars being sterilized in boiling water, the pressure canner hissing in the corner. She'd always loved cooking, but now it had purpose beyond pleasure. Every jar she sealed was another day they might survive. "Your mother's having a nervous breakdown in the healthiest way possible," Marcus told Lila one evening, watching Elena label her 50th jar of pickled vegetables. "I think she's canned everything in the grocery store at this point." But his voice was fond, not critical. They all needed their way of coping. Lila's way was research. She spent hours online, pulling up everything she could find about epidemics, survival strategies, defensive architecture. She printed it all out, didn't trust that the internet would keep working once things went bad, and organized it into binders, medical procedures, edible plants, water purification methods, how to treat wounds without proper hospitals. Corey found her at 2 a.m. on day 10, still hunched over her laptop, eyes burning. "You need sleep," he said, setting down a mug of tea she hadn't asked for, but definitely needed. "I need to make sure I'm not forgetting anything." Lila didn't look up from the screen. "There was this thing in the first timeline someone got sick. We didn't know how to treat it, and they died because we didn't have the right medicine. I can't remember what the illness was. I'm trying to cross-reference symptoms, but..." "Lila." Corey gently closed the laptop. "You can't save everyone." "I can try. And you will burn yourself out before the outbreak even starts." He pulled her chair back from the desk. "Come on, 3 hours of sleep minimum. Doctor's orders." "You're not a doctor. I played one in the high school musical. That counts." He tugged her to her feet. "Seriously, you're no good to anyone if you collapse from exhaustion." Lila wanted to argue, but the exhaustion was catching up with her. She'd been running on adrenaline and fear for 10 days straight. "Fine. 3 hours. 6. 4. 5, and you actually sleep instead of lying there planning. Deal." He walked her to her bedroom door, hesitated. "Do you want me to stay?" Not in a weird way. Just, you've been having nightmares." Lila had been having nightmares. Every night, the same dream. Corey dying over and over, in different ways. Sometimes it was the zombies. Sometimes it was starvation. Sometimes it was an injury they couldn't treat. Her brain apparently had 1,000 versions of losing him, and it wanted to show her every single one. "Yeah," she said quietly. "That would help." He grabbed the spare pillow from her closet and settled into the reading chair by her window, pulling a blanket over his legs. Within minutes, his breathing had evened out into sleep. Lila lay in bed, watching him. The moonlight caught the edge of his jaw, the curve of his shoulder. Alive, safe, here. She fell asleep, counting his breaths. On day 15, reality started setting in for the rest of the neighborhood. Mrs. Henderson from next door appeared at the front gate mid-morning, arms crossed over her chest, lips pursed in that particular expression that meant someone was about to get a lecture. "Elena Carter," she called through the new steel bars. "Would you mind explaining what on earth you're doing to this beautiful property?" Elena, who'd been hauling another box of canned goods from her car, set it down with a sigh. She walked to the gate, plastering on her best customer service smile, the one she used for difficult clients at her floral shop. "Hi, Margaret. How are you?" "Don't you hi, Margaret me. That fence is an absolute eyesore, and I've gotten calls from 3 other neighbors asking if we should be concerned. Are you people in some kind of trouble? Should we be calling the police?" Before Elena could respond, Corey appeared from around the side of the house, wiping motor oil from his hands. He'd been working on reinforcing the garage doors. "Mrs. Henderson, hey. Actually, This is kind of my fault. Margaret Henderson's expression softened slightly. She'd always had a soft spot for Corey, had known him since he was 12, had watched him grow from a quiet, grieving kid into a respectful young man who always helped her carry groceries when he saw her struggling. How so? She asked, though her tone was gentler now. Corey glanced back at the house, then stepped closer to the fence, lowering his voice like he was sharing a confidence. Lila's been having some really bad anxiety attacks lately. Panic disorder, her doctor thinks it might be PTSD from something. They're still working it out. But she's been having these episodes where she doesn't feel safe, and the doctor recommended we make some environmental changes to help her feel more secure. It wasn't entirely a lie. Lila was traumatized just from a future that hadn't happened yet, instead of a past that had. Margaret's face immediately shifted to concern. Oh, that poor girl. I had no idea. Is she okay? She's getting help, Corey said. And the fence, the security measures, it's all to help her feel protected. I know it looks extreme, but if it helps her sleep at night, it's worth it. Of course, of course. Margaret reached through the fence to pat Corey's arm. You tell Lila if she needs anything at all, she should just call. I remember when my sister had panic attacks. Terrible things. After she left, Elena turned to Corey with raised eyebrows. PTSD and panic attacks? Would you prefer I told her we're preparing for the zombie apocalypse? Fair point. The lie worked. Over the next few days, the story spread through the neighborhood. The Carter girl was having mental health issues. The family was being supportive. How wonderful that they were taking it seriously. Neighbors stopped questioning the deliveries. A few even dropped off casseroles and sympathetic cards. Lila found the whole thing darkly funny. They think I'm crazy, but in a sad way instead of a dangerous way. I guess that's progress. You're not crazy, Corey said. I'm preparing for an apocalypse that hasn't happened yet based on memories from a timeline that technically doesn't exist. That's pretty much the definition of crazy. Or the definition of informed. She looked at him. This boy man now. Really, who'd been her best friend since childhood? Who died protecting her? Who was here now believing in her impossible story without question? You really don't doubt any of this, do you? I have the same dreams you do, he said. Just less detailed. But enough that I know something's coming. He paused. And even if I didn't, even if you were wrong about all of it, I'd still help you prepare, because you believe it, and that's enough for me. Lila kissed him. Not planned, not thought through, just reached up and kissed him like she'd been wanting to do since the moment she saw him alive again in the driveway 2 weeks ago. Corey froze for half a second, then kissed her back. His hands came up to cup her face, gentle and sure, and for a moment nothing else existed except this them. Together, alive. When they broke apart, he was smiling. That was unexpected. I died before I could do it last time, Lila said. Didn't want to make that mistake again. Then I should probably tell you I've been in love with you since we were 17, and you punched Brad Morrison for spreading rumors about me. You're just now mentioning this? Timing never seemed right. Then the world ended, or will end. Time travel grammar is complicated. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Point is, I'm in love with you. Have been for years. If we're doing honesty before the apocalypse, you should know that. Lila laughed, the first real laugh she'd managed since waking up on June 15th. I love you too. In case that wasn't clear from the kissing. Little bit clear. Could use more data to be sure. She kissed him again, longer this time, until her father's voice from the porch interrupted. You two planning to help unload this truck? Or should I do it myself while you make out by the fence? They broke apart, both grinning like idiots. We're coming, Lila called back. Take your time, Marcus said, but he was smiling too. Just remember, we've got work to do and only 15 days left to do it. 15 days. The reminder sobered them both. Corey squeezed her hand once, then headed toward the truck. Lila followed, trying not to think about the countdown clock in her head, ticking down toward July 15th. Day 20 brought the first real disagreement. They were in the living room, all four of them, plus the blueprints Marcus had drawn up for additional fortifications. He wanted to reinforce the basement, turn it into a proper panic room with steel reinforcement and a separate air filtration system. It'll cost about $20,000, he said, pointing at the diagram. But it gives us a fallback position if the main house is breached. We don't have $20,000 left, Elena said quietly. She'd been managing the finances, watching their savings drain away with each supply order. Not after the fence and the windows and all the food. We're down to maybe $5,000 in liquid assets. Anything else? We'd need to start selling things or taking out loans. Then we take out a loan, Marcus said. For what collateral? We've already mortgaged everything we can. Then we sell the shop. Elena's face went pale. Marcus, that shop it's a building. We can rebuild after this is over. If this is over, if Lila's right about any of this. Elena's voice had risen slightly. She looked at Lila. Honey, I believe you. I do. But we're bankrupting ourselves here. What if nothing happens? What if it's all just nightmares and stress, and we've destroyed our entire financial life for nothing? The room went silent. Lila felt like she'd been punched. You think I'm wrong. I think you're traumatized by something I don't know what, but something real. And I think maybe that trauma is making you believe in something that isn't going to happen. Elena's eyes were shining with tears. I'm terrified that we're going to spend everything we have. Lose the shop, lose the house, and then wake up on July 16th with nothing to show for it, except debt and my daughter who still needs psychiatric help. Elena, Marcus started, but she shook her head. No, someone has to say it. We've been going along with this for 20 days, spending money like water, and nobody's asked the hard question. What if we're wrong? Lila stood up, hands shaking. Fine, then stop. Stop helping. Stop buying supplies. Stop reinforcing the house. I'll do it myself. Lila! No, seriously. If you think I'm just crazy, if you think this is all in my head, then you don't have to participate. I'll figure it out on my own. Honey, that's not what It's exactly what you said. Lila's voice cracked. You think I'm making it up. You think I need therapy instead of supplies. Well, guess what? I've already died once. I've already watched everyone I love die, and I'm not doing it again just because you're worried about money. She stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Corey stood up. I'll go talk to her. Maybe give her a minute, Marcus said quietly. She doesn't need a minute. She needs someone who believes her. Corey headed for the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Mrs. Carter, I think she's right. I don't know how or why, but I think she's telling the truth. And I'd rather be prepared for something that doesn't happen than unprepared for something that does. He left. Elena buried her face in her hands. I'm a terrible mother. You're a scared mother, Marcus corrected. He moved to sit beside her, pulling her against his chest. And you're not wrong to be worried. This is insane. All of it. If someone had told me a month ago I'd be building a fortress in the suburbs because my daughter predicted the apocalypse, I'd have laughed in their face. But you believe her. I believe something's happening. Whether it's exactly what Lila described or something different, I don't know. But I've learned to trust my gut, and my gut says we need to be ready. He paused. That said, you're also right that we can't spend money we don't have. We need to prioritize. The panic room can wait, or we can do a cheaper version. Steel reinforced door on the basement, extra locks, some stored supplies down there. Not perfect, but better than nothing, and maybe 3,000 instead of 20. Elena nodded against his chest. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that in front of her. Probably not. But she needed to hear that someone's worried about the practical side. We can believe her and still be smart about resources. You should have been the diplomat in this family. Nah, that's always been Corey's job. Corey found Lila on the roof of the main house, their old spot from high school, where they used to climb up and talk for hours. She was sitting with her knees pulled to her chest, staring out at the neighborhood. From here, you could see 6 other houses, all of them normal suburban homes with normal families doing normal things. No idea what was coming. Your mom's not wrong to be scared, Corey said, settling down beside her. Whose side are you on? Yours. Always yours. But she's also not wrong. Lila didn't respond. We are spending money like it doesn't matter, Corey continued. We are making permanent changes to property. And we are doing it all based on something that hasn't happened yet and that nobody else can verify. From the outside, it looks crazy. From the inside too, Lila said quietly. Maybe. But crazy doesn't mean wrong. He bumped his shoulder against hers. Here's what I know. I've had the same dreams you have. Not as detailed, but enough that I believe something's coming. Your dad believes it. You can see it in the way he's planning, the way he's moving. Even your mom believes it, deep down. She's just terrified of what it means. She thinks I need therapy. You probably do. So do I. So does anyone who's seen what we've seen or will see or have already seen in another timeline. This is complicated. He paused. But therapy can wait until after we survive the next few months. Right now, we need to focus. Lila finally looked at him. What if she's right, though? What if nothing happens and we've destroyed their entire financial life for nothing? Then we'll deal with it. Your dad will rebuild. Your mom will reopen the shop. We'll all figure it out together. Corey took her hand. But I'd rather deal with being wrong and alive than right and dead. She squeezed his fingers. I'm scared. Me too. I keep thinking, what if I miss something? What if I forget some crucial detail and someone dies because of it? Then we adapt. That's all anyone can do. He pulled her closer. You're not responsible for saving the world, Lila. You're just responsible for doing the best you can with what you know. The rest is out of your control. They sat like that for a while, watching the sun set over the neighborhood. Somewhere below, Elena and Marcus were still in the living room, probably discussing budgets and priorities. Deliveries would arrive tomorrow, more food, more medical supplies, more things they desperately needed and could barely afford. 10 days left. I should apologize to my mom, Lila said eventually. Probably, but maybe eat dinner first. Nobody makes good apologies on an empty stomach. She laughed despite herself. Is that a Corey Voss original wisdom? Learned it from my grandmother. She had a lot of thoughts about proper apology timing. They climbed down from the roof together, Corey going first to catch her if she slipped. Inside, the house smelled like garlic and tomatoes, Elena stress cooking again. The kitchen was full of bubbling pots, and Elena was moving between them with the focused intensity of someone using cooking to avoid thinking about everything else. Mom, Lila said from the doorway. Elena turned, wooden spoon still in hand. Her eyes were red. I'm sorry, Lila continued. I shouldn't have yelled at you. You're not wrong to be scared, and you're not wrong to worry about money. I need you to trust me, even if it doesn't make sense. Elena set down the spoon and crossed the kitchen in 3 steps, pulling Lila into a tight hug. I do trust you. I'm just terrified of what's coming, of being wrong, of being right, all of it. Me too. They stood there for a moment, holding each other. Then Elena pulled back, wiping her eyes. Your father and I talked. We're going to do a modified version of the basement plan, cheaper, but still secure. And we're going to prioritize the remaining supplies we absolutely need versus things that would be nice to have. We'll make the money stretch. Okay. And after this is all over, whether your timeline is right or not, we're all going to therapy, as a family. Because even if nothing happens, we've all been through something traumatic just from the preparing. Lila smiled. Deal. Marcus appeared in the kitchen doorway. We eating or having a family therapy session? Because I'm hungry, and those are 2 very different activities. We're eating, Elena said, turning back to her pots. Everyone sit down. Food's ready. They gathered around the kitchen table, the 4 of them plus Corey, who'd become part of the family so gradually that nobody questioned his permanent place at dinner anymore. Elena served pasta with homemade sauce, fresh bread, salad from the garden. Normal food, normal conversation. For an hour, they could almost pretend everything was fine. Almost. The final 10 days passed in a blur of last-minute preparations. They prioritized weapons. Marcus's gun collection came out of storage, cleaned, and loaded. Corey bought ammunition in bulk, spinning some story to the gun store owner about a hunting trip. They added crossbows, knives, a baseball bat that Marcus wrapped in barbed wire just in case. This feels very Walking Dead, Lila commented, watching her father test the weight of the wrapped bat. If it works, Marcus replied. They finished the basement modifications, not the full panic room Elena had worried about, but a reinforced door, deadbolts, shelves stocked with supplies. Elena moved her canning operation down there, lining the walls with jars of preserved food. It started to look less like a basement and more like a bunker. Corey expanded the greenhouse operation in the backyard, actual plants now, growing under lights. Tomatoes, lettuce, herbs, carrots. We'll need fresh food eventually, he explained. Can't live on canned goods forever. How do you know so much about gardening? Lila asked, watching him carefully tend the seedlings. My grandmother. She kept a garden that could feed half the neighborhood. Taught me everything before she died. He paused. I think she'd approve of this, using her lessons to keep people alive. On day 25, they ran their first drill. Marcus called it practice, but everyone knew what he meant. What do we do if the outbreak starts while we're separated? Lila, you're at the grocery store. Go. Lila ran through the scenario. Drop everything, get to the car, drive home. Don't stop for anyone, don't try to help. Just get home. Corey, you're at work. Same procedure. Get home. Don't be a hero. Elena, you're at the shop. She protested, I can't just abandon my customers. But Marcus was firm. If it's between them and us, you choose us. Always. They drilled it 3 times. Then Marcus made them do it in the dark, because zombies don't only come out during daylight. On day 27, the news started reporting strange incidents in major cities. Violent attacks, unexplained behavior, people getting sick with flu-like symptoms, and then nothing. The stories disappeared from the news cycle as quickly as they appeared. Lila watched the broadcasts with her stomach in knots. It's starting early. It wasn't supposed to start until the 15th. Maybe it's different this time, Corey said. Or maybe it was always like this and you didn't notice until the main outbreak. Or maybe I changed something by preparing. Butterfly effect. Does it matter? We're as ready as we're going to be. He was right. The house was fortified. The supplies were stocked. They had weapons, food, water, medical equipment. They had a plan. On day 29, they held a family meeting. Tomorrow's the day, Marcus said. He'd laid out detailed maps on the dining table, the neighborhood, the town, evacuation routes if they needed them. Starting at midnight tonight, we're on lockdown. Nobody leaves the property unless absolutely necessary. We keep the gates locked, windows shuttered. We take shifts watching the perimeter. What about work? Elena asked. I have appointments at the shop tomorrow. Cancel them. Marcus, I can't just... Yes, you can. Tell them it's a family emergency. Tell them you're sick. Tell them whatever you need to tell them. But you're not leaving this property tomorrow. Elena looked like she wanted to argue, but she nodded. Corey, you're with us, Marcus continued. Guest house is too far from the main building. Tonight you move into the main house, 3rd floor guest room. What about my stuff? Bring what matters. Leave the rest. They spent the evening moving Corey's essential belongings, clothes, photos, his grandmother's recipe book, the vintage guitar he'd been teaching himself to play. Lila helped him carry boxes up to the 3rd floor, both of them quiet. You okay? He asked, setting down the last box. Ask me tomorrow. That night, none of them slept well. Lila lay in bed, listening to the house settle around her. Corey was 1 floor above her. Her parents were down the hall. Everyone she loved was under one roof, safe, protected. For now. At 11:47 p.m., Lila gave up on sleep and went downstairs. She found her parents in the kitchen, both sitting at the table with untouched cups of tea. Couldn't sleep either, Elena asked. No. Lila sat down. Marcus pushed a 3rd cup of tea toward her. They didn't talk, just sat together, listening to the clock tick toward midnight, toward July 15th, toward the day everything changed. When the clock struck 12, Marcus stood up. Lockdown starts now. I'm doing a perimeter check, then I'm locking all the doors. Everyone should try to get some rest. But none of them moved. They just sat there, together, waiting for the world to end. 3. Day 1. The first scream came at 6:23 a.m. Lila was already awake. She'd never really fallen asleep. The sound cut through the early morning quiet like a knife. Raw, terrified, abruptly cut off. She was out of bed and at the window in seconds. The street below looked normal at first. Mr. Garcia, the neighborhood security guard, was on his morning patrol. Mrs. Henderson was getting her newspaper. Mr. Liu was loading golf clubs into his car. Then Mr. Garcia collapsed. Lila's hands went to the window, pressing against the glass. From here, she could see him convulsing on the sidewalk, his body jerking violently. Mrs. Henderson ran toward him, calling for help. That's when Lila saw it, the man, if he could still be called that, who'd been walking down the sidewalk behind Mr. Garcia. His skin had a gray cast to it. His movements were wrong, jerky, and uncoordinated. His jaw hung too loose. He fell on Mr. Garcia while Mrs. Henderson screamed, "Dad!" Lila's voice came out hoarse. "Dad, it's starting." Marcus was in her room seconds later, rifle already in hand. He looked out the window, his face going hard. Jesus. More screams now. Mr. Liu was backing toward his car, golf club raised. Something was chasing him, someone. Except people don't move like that. Don't make those sounds. Wake your mother and Corey, Marcus said. Get everyone to the basement. Now. Lila ran. She found Elena already awake, pulling on clothes with shaking hands. I heard the screaming. Basement. Now. Mom, we drilled this. 3rd floor. Corey's door was already open. He was pulling on shoes, his face pale but calm. It's happening. It's happening. They met in the hallway, all 4 of them. Marcus was checking windows, making sure every shutter was locked. Outside, the screaming had multiplied. Running footsteps, car alarms, the sound of breaking glass. Basement, Marcus ordered. Elena, take Lila and Corey down. I'm doing one more perimeter check. Marcus, you are not... I need to make sure we're secure. Go. I'll be right behind you. They went The basement was dark and cool, lit only by the emergency lights Marcus had installed. Elena turned on the battery-powered lanterns, and the space filled with warm light. Shelves lined the walls, food, water, medical supplies. The reinforced door stood between them and the rest of the house, thick steel with 3 deadbolts. Corey locked it behind them. They waited. Above them, they could hear Marcus moving through the house. Checking locks, testing shutters. His footsteps were steady, methodical. Then they heard him on the basement stairs. 3 sharp knocks. Their code. Corey opened the door. Marcus slipped inside, and they locked it behind him. Status? Elena asked. House is secure. Everything's locked down. The fence is holding. I saw a few of them outside, but they can't get through. Marcus set down his rifle and pulled out his phone. No signal. Phones are dead. Must have happened in the last few minutes. Internet? Lila asked. Marcus checked his phone again. Also dead. They'd known this would happen, infrastructure failing fast, but knowing it and experiencing it were different things. So we're alone, Elena said quietly. We're prepared, Marcus corrected. This is exactly what we planned for. Outside, the screams continued, then gunshots, then more screams. They sat in the basement and listened to their neighborhood die. The first day was the longest. They took turns at the periscope. Marcus had installed a clever setup that let them see outside without exposing themselves. Through it, they watched their world transform. Morning, normal people running, screaming, trying to escape. The infected, because that's what they were, infected, not dead yet chasing them. The infection spread fast. Someone got bitten. They'd have maybe 10 minutes before they turned. Some didn't even get that long. Afternoon, the streets emptied. Most people had either escaped, died, or turned. The creatures Lila couldn't think of them as people anymore, wandered aimlessly. Some were still in their pajamas. Some were in business suits. One was wearing a mailman's uniform. Evening. The power went out at 6:47 p.m. They'd expected it, but it was still jarring. The house went dark except for their emergency lights. Outside, fires burned unchecked. Somewhere in the distance, explosions. Night. The creatures were more active after dark. They gathered in groups, drawn by sound or movement or something else. A dozen of them clustered around a car alarm that wouldn't stop blaring. They attacked it, tearing at the metal with their hands until they were bloody stumps. They're not smart, Marcus observed, but they're persistent. And strong, Corey added. Did you see that one tear the car door off? They don't feel pain, Lila said. She'd learned this in the first timeline. That's what makes them dangerous. You can hurt them, but they don't stop. The only way to stop them is to destroy the brain. Elena was sitting in the corner, arms wrapped around herself. I can't believe this is real. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and it'll be a nightmare. I wish it was, Lila said. They ate dinner in the basement, cold food, because they didn't want to risk the smell of cooking, drawing attention. They spoke in whispers, even though the walls were thick. They were all armed, even Elena, who hated guns, had a pistol in her lap. At midnight, they set up the sleep rotation. 2 people awake at all times, watching the periscope and monitoring the doors. Marcus took first watch with Lila. Elena and Corey lay down on the cots Marcus had brought down, both of them staring at the ceiling. Do you think anyone else survived? Lila asked quietly, her eye pressed to the periscope. Probably, Marcus said. People are resourceful. And they had warning, sort of. Those news reports about violence in the cities. Some people must have seen this coming. Not enough people. No, not enough. They watched in silence. Outside, the creatures roamed, some fast, some slow. Some looked relatively fresh, newly turned. Others looked like they'd been infected for hours, their skin already taking on that gray, corpse-like quality. How long until they're all like that? Marcus asked. All gray and dead-looking? A few days, maybe. The infection kills the host eventually, but they keep moving even after they're technically dead. Something about the virus reanimating the brainstem. How do you know that? Lila paused. I don't. It feels true. Like information I learned somewhere. From the first timeline. Maybe. Or maybe I'm making it up to make sense of things. Hard to tell anymore. At 2 a.m., Elena and Corey took over the watch. Lila lay down on the cot but didn't sleep, just closed her eyes and listened to the house creak around them, the distant sounds of chaos outside. They'd survived day 1. 23 more days until she and Corey died in the first timeline. She had to make sure they lasted longer this time. 4. Adaptation. Day 3 brought the first real test of their fortifications. The creatures Lila had started calling them, infected in her head, It felt more clinical than zombies had started moving in larger groups. Pack behavior maybe, or just random clustering. Either way, a group of about 30 of them ended up pressed against the fence by mid-morning. Marcus watched through the periscope, his jaw tight. They're testing it, not intentionally, but the pressure's building. If enough of them push against one section, the fence will hold, Lila said, but she didn't sound certain. For how long? They didn't have to wait long for the answer. At 10:47 a.m., they heard the first groan of metal, the fence posts bending under sustained pressure. Marcus grabbed his rifle and headed upstairs. Everyone stays in the basement except me. If I'm not back in 10 minutes, Corey, you're in charge. Dad, wait. But he was already gone. They listened to his footsteps above them. A window shutter opening, then gunfire precise, controlled. 3 shots, 4, 5. The pressure on the fence eased. Marcus came back down 12 minutes later, his face grim. Had to thin them out. They were pushing too hard on the east section. I took out the ones in front and the rest wandered off. But they'll come back, Corey said. Probably. We need to be smarter about this. We can't afford to waste ammunition every time a group gets too close. They spent the afternoon brainstorming solutions. Elena suggested noise deterrence, something to draw the infected away from the house. Corey proposed reinforcing the weakest sections of fence with additional support beams. Lila remembered something from the first timeline. They're attracted to movement and sound. If we stay still and quiet, they usually move on. It's only when we panic and make noise that they stick around. So we ghost them, Marcus said. No lights at night visible from outside. No unnecessary movement. We let them think the house is abandoned. What about when we need to go outside? Elena asked. We don't. Not unless absolutely necessary. For how long? As long as it takes. That night, they ate dinner by candlelight, curtains drawn. Even though the shutters were closed, they spoke in whispers. They moved carefully, avoiding anything that might creak or bang. The house felt like a tomb. On day 5, the water pressure dropped. The taps still worked, but it was clear the municipal system was failing. Marcus immediately implemented water rationing, 1 gallon per person per day for drinking and cooking, another gallon for basic hygiene. Everything else came from their stored supplies. How long will our water last? Elena asked. Marcus did the math. At this rate, about 4 months if nothing goes wrong, 6 if we're really careful. And then we use the rain catchment system, or we start purifying water from the creek. The creek is half a mile away. I know. Day 7 brought illness. Elena woke up with a fever and body aches. For one terrifying moment, everyone thought she'd been infected somehow, but there were no bites, no scratches, no way the virus could have gotten to her. Just regular human flu, probably stress-induced. But in an apocalypse, regular flu could still kill you. Corey took charge of her care, moving her to a separate room to avoid spreading it. He brought her water, monitored her temperature, administered medicine from their carefully rationed supply. Lila helped where she could, but mostly she felt useless. She's going to be fine, Corey assured her on day 8 when Elena's fever finally broke. Just needs rest. In the first timeline, we didn't have medicine, Lila said. When people got sick, they just suffered through it. If they made it, great. If not, she didn't finish the sentence. But we have medicine now, and she's already improving. That's the difference preparation makes. Day 10 brought a knock on the door. They all froze. Knocking meant someone alive, someone who'd seen the house and thought it might be safe, someone who might need help, or might be desperate enough to try to take what they had. Marcus grabbed his rifle and moved to the periscope. Outside, a young woman stood at the gate. She was thin, dirty, with a gash on her forearm that had been wrapped in what looked like a torn t-shirt. She knocked again, more insistent. Please, she called out. Her voice was hoarse. I know you're in there. I saw movement yesterday. Please, I'm not infected. I just need water. Just a little water. Marcus watched her for a long moment. Then he looked at Elena, at Lila, at Corey. The question was unspoken. Do we help her? We can't save everyone, Marcus said quietly. We can save her, Elena argued. She'd recovered from her flu but still looked weak. One person. We have extra water. We have enough water for us. Every person we add is a risk. She's hurt and alone and begging for help. What happened to being good people? Good people don't survive apocalypses. The woman knocked again, more desperate now. Please, I haven't had water in 2 days. I'm not asking to come in. Just throw a bottle over the fence, please. Lila looked at Corey. He looked conflicted, she could see it in his face. The battle between compassion and survival instinct. "1 bottle," Lila said finally. "We give her 1 bottle of water and send her on her way." Marcus hesitated, then nodded. "Fine, but I'm doing it. Nobody else gets close to that fence." He went upstairs. They heard him open a window shutter, heard him call out to the woman. A moment later, he was back in the basement. "She took the water and left," he said. "Didn't ask for anything else, just said thank you and headed south." "Do you think she'll survive?" Elena asked. "Does it matter?" "It matters to me." "Then no, probably not. Not unless she finds shelter and more supplies. That wound on her arm looked infected. Not zombie infected, just regular infection. Without antibiotics, she's got maybe a week before sepsis sets in." Elena's face crumpled. "We could have given her antibiotics. We need them for us. We have plenty. For now. We don't know how long this will last. Every resource we give away is something we might need later." They didn't speak for the rest of the night. The silence felt heavier than usual. Day 14 brought the first real sign that things might not follow the exact timeline Lila remembered. On the radio, they'd been monitoring emergency broadcasts. Though most were just static, they picked up a weak signal. "Shelter at the downtown library," the voice crackled. "Military presence protected zone brings supplies." The message repeated 3 times, then dissolved into static again. Marcus grabbed a map and spread it on the table. Downtown library is about 8 miles from here. If there really is military presence, that's a protected zone. Food, water, medicine, maybe even a way out of the city. "Or it's a trap," Lila said. "In the first timeline, the military tried to set up safe zones. They all failed within the first week. The infected overran them." "But this is week 2, Corey pointed out. "Maybe things are different now. Maybe they learned from early mistakes. Or maybe it's exactly the same and that radio broadcast is outdated. Could be days old." They argued about it for hours. Marcus wanted to investigate, take 1 vehicle, scout it out, see if the safe zone was real. Elena wanted to stay put. They had everything they needed here. Why risk it? Corey was undecided. Lila was firmly against. "We don't know enough," she insisted. "We're safe here. We have supplies. Going out there is a huge risk." "Staying here is also a risk," Marcus countered. "We're isolated. If something goes wrong, if the fence fails, if someone gets seriously hurt, we have no backup plan. The downtown library isn't a backup plan. It's a death wish." "You don't know that." "I know that in my timeline, the cities were the worst places to be. The infected concentrated there. The few military zones that tried to hold out got overwhelmed. And how many people survived because they went to those zones? How many got evacuated before they fell?" Lila didn't have an answer to that. In the end, they compromised. They'd monitor the radio for a few more days. If the broadcast continued, if there were signs the safe zone was legitimate and holding, they'd reconsider. But for now, they'd stay put. That night, Lila lay awake in her cot, listening to the house settle. Above them, the infected wandered the streets. Below them, her family slept restlessly. And somewhere out there, maybe, was a safe zone that could save them all. Or kill them trying to reach it. She closed her eyes and tried not to think about day 23, when she and Corey had died in the first timeline. They were past the halfway point now. New territory. Every day they survived was a day she'd never experienced before. It should have felt like victory. It felt like walking through fog, waiting for something to jump out at her. 5. The stranger. On day 17, the woman came back. Lila was on watch when she appeared at the gate again, the same woman Marcus had given water to a week ago, except now she looked worse. The gash on her arm had turned a mottled purple-green, swollen and weeping. She swayed on her feet, barely staying upright. "Please," she called out, her voice barely audible. "Please. I'm dying. I need antibiotics. Please." Lila watched through the periscope, her stomach twisting. The woman was right. That arm was badly infected. Without treatment, she'd be dead in a few days. Maybe less. She turned to wake the others, but Marcus was already awake, standing behind her. "She came back," Lila said unnecessarily. "I see that. Her arm's infected, really infected." "I see that too." They stood there, watching the woman sway at the gate. She knocked weakly, then seemed to lose strength and just leaned against the fence. "We could help her," Lila said quietly. "We have antibiotics. We could throw them over the fence like the water. And when she comes back in 3 days needing more? When she brings friends because she knows we have supplies?" "She's dying, Dad. A lot of people are dying." We're not like this. We don't just watch people die when we can help. Marcus turned to look at her. His face was drawn, tired. He'd aged 10 years in the past 2 weeks. What do you want me to say, Lila? That you're right? Fine. You're right. It's cruel to watch someone die when we have the means to save them. But it's also stupid to risk our safety for a stranger who might bring more trouble than she's worth. Since when are we the kind of people who calculate if someone's worth saving? Since the world ended and we became responsible for keeping this family alive. Elena appeared on the stairs, wrapped in a blanket. What's going on? The woman from before is back, Marcus said. She's asking for antibiotics. Elena moved to the periscope, looked through it, and immediately went pale. Oh God, that arm. Yeah, we have to help her. Elena. Marcus, I mean it. Look at her. She's 25 at most. Someone's daughter. Maybe someone's sister. We can't just let her die. Yes, we can. No, we can't. Elena's voice was firm. I didn't raise our daughter to be the kind of person who stands by while others suffer, and I'm not becoming that person now. We help her. And if she brings others, if she tells people we have supplies, then we deal with it. But right now, she's alone and dying, and we can save her. Elena looked at Lila. Get the antibiotics. And bandages, and something for her to eat. She looks half-starved. Marcus started to protest again, but Elena cut him off. This isn't up for discussion. We're helping her. 15 minutes later, Lila was at the gate with a bag of supplies. Antibiotics, fresh bandages, antiseptic, granola bars, and 2 more bottles of water. The woman was barely conscious now, slumped against the fence. Hey, Lila called through the bars. Stay awake. I'm going to throw this over. Can you catch it? The woman stirred, looking up with glazed eyes. You're helping me? Just don't make me regret it. Lila tossed the bag over the fence. It landed near the woman, who grabbed it with her good arm and clutched it to her chest. The antibiotics take them twice a day with food, Lila instructed. Clean that wound with the antiseptic first. Change the bandages daily. If you start feeling worse instead of better fever, chills, red streaks spreading from the wound, you need stronger medicine, and I don't have it. Thank you, the woman whispered. Thank you so much. My name's Clara. Clara Bennett. Lila Carter. Now go find somewhere safe to hole up while you recover. And Clara? Lila's voice hardened. Don't come back, and don't tell anyone about this house. I won't, I promise. Lila watched as Clara stumbled away, heading back down the street with the bag clutched against her chest. When she was out of sight, Lila went back inside and locked the door. Marcus was waiting in the basement. Feel good about yourself? Not particularly, Lila admitted. But I feel less terrible than I would have watching her die. Let's hope you still feel that way in a few days. 3 days later, Clara came back. And she wasn't alone. Lila spotted them through the periscope at dawn on day 20. Clara and 2 others, a man and a woman in their 30s. All 3 looked rough, dirty, tired, but armed with kitchen knives and what looked like a crowbar. We have a problem. Lila called down to the others. Marcus was upstairs in seconds, rifle in hand. He looked through the periscope and swore. She brought friends. I told her not to come back. Well, she didn't listen. They watched as Clara and the others examined the fence, walking the perimeter, testing the strength of the posts. Clara's arm looked better, the swelling had gone down, the color was more normal. The antibiotics had worked. Now she was trying to figure out how to get inside. Hey, Clara called out. Lila, I know you're in there. We just want to talk. Don't respond, Marcus said. Maybe they'll think we left. But Clara was persistent. She knocked on the gate, called out several more times, even threw small rocks at the shuttered windows. After 20 minutes, she gave up and walked away with her companions. But Lila could see them setting up camp across the street, in the abandoned Garcia house. They weren't leaving. They're going to be a problem, Marcus said. We helped her and she brought people back to scout us, Elena said quietly. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have insisted we help. You were trying to be kind, Corey said. That's not something to apologize for. It is if it gets us killed. For the next 2 days, Clara and her friends watched the house. They took turns on surveillance, clearly waiting for someone to leave or some sign of weakness. They didn't approach the fence again, but they didn't leave either. On day 22, they made their move. It was 2 a.m. when Lila heard it, the sound of metal on metal. Someone was trying to cut through the fence. Everyone was awake instantly. Marcus and Corey grabbed weapons. Elena pulled Lila back toward the panic room, but Lila resisted. I need to see what's happening. Through the periscope, she could see all 3 of them working on the fence with bolt cutters. Clara was keeping watch while the other two cut. They were focused on a weak point near the back corner, a section that had taken repeated pressure from infected and had started to bend. "They're going to get through?" Corey said, watching over Lila's shoulder. "Not if I stop them," Marcus said. He was already moving toward the stairs. "Dad, wait. We can't let them breach the fence. If they get through, we're exposed. Every infected in a 3-block radius will pour through that hole." He was right. Lila knew he was right. But watching him head upstairs with his rifle made her stomach turn. "Marcus," Elena called after him, "don't kill them, please. Just scare them off." He didn't respond. 3 minutes later, a shot rang out. Then another. Through the periscope, Lila watched Clara and her friends scatter. One of them, the older woman, was clutching her leg, blood visible even in the dark. They ran, abandoning the bolt cutters, disappearing into the night. Marcus came back downstairs, his face grim. "I shot past them." Warning shots. But one ricochet caught the woman in the leg. "Not fatal, but she'll need medical attention." "Which we're not giving her," Elena said. "No, we're not." They checked the fence at first light. The damage was minimal, a few bars partially cut through, but nothing that couldn't be reinforced. Marcus spent the morning welding additional supports, making sure that section was stronger than before. Clara and her friends were gone. Their makeshift camp across the street had been abandoned, the Garcia house empty again. "Do you think they'll be back?" Elena asked. "Honestly, I don't know," Marcus said. "But if they do come back, they'll know we're armed and willing to defend ourselves. That might be enough to keep them away." That night, Lila sat on her cot, unable to sleep. Today was day 23, the day she and Corey had died in the first timeline. They'd gone out for supplies, gotten caught by the horde, and neither of them had made it back. But this time they were safe. They'd stayed in the house. They hadn't taken the risk. They'd survived past the point where she died before. Corey found her at midnight, sitting awake in the dark. "You okay?" "We made it," she said quietly. "We made it past the day I died." He sat beside her on the cot, taking her hand. "Then tomorrow's a new day. None of this has happened before. We're writing a new timeline now. A better one? Let's hope so." They sat together in the dark, listening to the house settle around them, and for the first time since waking up on June 15th, Lila let herself feel something like hope. 6. Evolution. Day 30 brought the first change in the infected. Lila noticed it first through the periscope, one of them moving differently. Faster, more coordinated. It wasn't the shambling walk they'd gotten used to seeing. This one moved with purpose, head swiveling to track movement, body tensed like it was hunting. "Dad," Lila called. "You need to see this." Marcus looked through the periscope and went still. "That's not right." They watched as the infected male, probably in his 40s, wearing what used to be a postal uniform, stalked down the street. When a cat darted across his path, he lunged with terrifying speed, catching it mid-jump. The cat didn't stand a chance. "They're getting smarter," Corey said, his voice tight. "Or the smart ones are surviving while the dumb ones die off," Marcus corrected. "Natural selection in fast forward." Over the next week, they spotted more of them. Faster infected, more alert, moving in small, coordinated groups. The old ones, the shambling, mindless ones from the first week, were becoming rarer. These new ones were harder to avoid, harder to predict. On day 35, one of them spotted movement through a gap in the shutters. Lila had been careless, opened the shutter, just a crack to get fresh air, thinking she was being quiet and careful. But the infected saw, and it remembered. For the next 3 days, that particular infected returned to their house repeatedly, circling the property, testing different sections of fence. It never gave up, just kept coming back, drawn by the knowledge that there was something alive inside. "It's learning," Elena said, watching it through the periscope. "It saw movement once, and now it knows this house has people." "So we stay completely still," Marcus said. "No opening shutters, no going outside, nothing that might draw more attention." But it was too late. The one infected brought others. By day 40, they had a small group, maybe a dozen, that had made the mansion their regular patrol route. They'd walk the perimeter, test the fence, press against the gates, always searching for a way in. "We need to do something," Corey said. "We can't just wait them out. What if they bring more? What if they eventually find a weak spot? Then we thin them out," Marcus said. "Carefully. At night. Make it look natural." They started taking them out one at a time, Marcus with his rifle, firing through a carefully opened second-story window in the dead of night. Headshots only. The bodies would be dragged away by other infected, clearing the area. It was grim work, but necessary. On day 45, the radio crackled to life again. Downtown library evacuating helicopters inbound. The voice was rushed, panicked. Safe zone compromised, repeat. Downtown safe zone compromised, evacuating survivors to static. They tried for hours to get more information, cycling through frequencies, but there was nothing. The downtown safe zone was gone. I told you, Lila said quietly. They always fail. But survivors were evacuated, Elena pointed out. That means there's somewhere else. Another safe zone. Maybe multiple zones. Maybe. Or maybe the helicopters never made it. We don't know. We could try to reach them, Marcus said. If there are evacuations happening, we should. No. Lila's voice was firm. We're not leaving. We're safe here. The moment we leave, we're exposed. You've seen what's out there now, the fast ones, the smart ones. We wouldn't make it a mile. She's right, Corey said. Better to stay where we have food, water, and defenses than risk everything on a maybe. Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but he nodded. Fine, we stay. But we keep monitoring the radio. If there's a confirmed evacuation point that's close enough, we reconsider. Day 50 brought Elena's birthday. They tried to celebrate, lit a single candle on a can of peaches, their makeshift cake, sang quietly, gave her small gifts they'd saved from before the outbreak. But it felt hollow, performative, like pretending things were normal when everything had fundamentally changed. Make a wish, Lila said, holding out the can with its single flickering candle. Elena looked at her family, her husband, her daughter, the boy who'd become a son. All of them alive, together, safe. She closed her eyes and blew out the candle. What did you wish for? Corey asked. That we'd still be here next year to do this again. Nobody laughed. Day 60 brought the first real cold snap. September had arrived, and with it, the temperature began to drop. The solar generators were working well enough, but they couldn't run a heater continuously. They started sleeping in more layers, gathering in the basement where it was warmer, conserving energy. Winter's going to be hard, Marcus said, reviewing their fuel supplies. We have enough propane for cooking, but not enough to heat the whole house. We'll need to close off rooms, concentrate our heat in a smaller area. What about the greenhouse? Corey asked. The plants won't survive a freeze. We'll bring what we can inside. Put them under grow lights in the basement. The rest. Marcus shrugged. We'll have to accept the loss. It was becoming a pattern, constant adaptation, constant loss, constant recalculation of what they could keep versus what they had to let go. On day 73, Corey found Lila crying in the third-floor bathroom. She'd been in there for an hour, door locked, trying to stay quiet. Talk to me, he said through the door. I'm fine. You're crying in the bathroom? That's not fine. Silence. Then the lock clicked open. Corey stepped inside and closed the door behind him. Lila was sitting on the floor, arms wrapped around her knees. Her eyes were red, her face blotchy. I can't do this anymore, she said. Do what? This. All of this. Being the one who has to remember everything from the first timeline. Being the one everyone looks to for answers. I don't have answers, Corey. I don't know what's going to happen next. We're past the point where I died, so everything is new, and I'm just making it up as I go along. And what if I'm wrong? What if I make a choice that gets someone killed? Corey sat down beside her on the cold tile floor. You're not alone in this. I feel alone. I feel like I'm carrying this weight, and nobody else can help me carry it because nobody else lived through it. Just me. And sometimes I wish she stopped herself. Wish what? That I'd never remembered. That I just died in the first timeline and stayed dead instead of waking up with all this knowledge and all this responsibility. Corey was quiet for a moment. Then, do you remember when we were 15 and my grandmother died? The subject changed through her. Yeah, of course. I wanted to die too. For months. I couldn't see the point of anything without her. She'd raised me after my parents died. She was everything. And then she was gone. And you know what kept me going? Lila shook her head. You. You showed up every single day. You didn't try to fix it or tell me it would get better. You just sat with me, reminded me I wasn't alone. He took her hand. So now I'm doing the same thing. You're not alone in this. Yeah, you have memories I don't have, but I have dreams. Your dad has combat experience. Your mom has common sense that keeps us grounded. We're all carrying different pieces of this. You don't have to carry it by yourself. Lila leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. I'm tired. I know. I don't mean physically. I mean like soul tired. Tired of being scared. Tired of fighting. Tired of survival being the only thing that matters. Then let's make something else matter, Corey said. Just for tonight, let's forget about the infected and the supplies and the timeline. Let's just be us for a few hours. How? He stood up, pulling her with him. Come with me. He led her to his room on the 3rd floor. From his pack, he pulled out the guitar he'd salvaged from his apartment. I've been practicing. Quietly. Want to hear? You hate playing for people. I hate playing for most people. You're not most people. He played for her quiet, simple songs. Some she recognized, some she didn't. His fingers stumbled occasionally, but he didn't stop. And slowly, the tightness in Lila's chest began to ease. When he finished, she was smiling. You've gotten better. Lots of free time in the apocalypse. She kissed him. Not desperate or urgent, just gentle, sweet, normal. The kind of kiss two people share when the world isn't ending around them. Thank you, she whispered against his lips, for mediocre guitar playing, for reminding me we're still alive, that we're still us. They spent the night together not in the basement with everyone else, just the two of them in his room, talking and laughing and pretending for a few hours that they were still just two people who loved each other instead of two people trying not to die. In the morning, they'd go back to being survivors, but for now, they were just Lila and Corey, and that was enough. 7. The mission. On day 97, 3 months into the outbreak, everything changed again. They heard the helicopter first distant thumping of rotors that grew louder. They all rushed to the periscope, taking turns watching as a military helicopter flew low over the neighborhood, circling several times before heading downtown. They're still evacuating, Elena said, hopeful. Or they're scouting, Marcus countered. Seeing what's left. An hour later, the radio crackled. Survivors in the Willow Creek area, this is Lieutenant Chen with the National Guard. We're establishing a temporary safe zone at the high school gymnasium for supply distribution and medical evaluation. If you can reach us safely, we'll provide food, water, and potential evacuation routes to larger protected zones. This location will be active for 72 hours only. The message repeated. They gathered around the radio, all of them staring at it like it might suddenly tell them what to do. The high school is 2 miles from here, Marcus said, already pulling out maps. That's manageable. It's also through downtown, Lila pointed out, which is where the infected are concentrated. But if they're offering evacuation, it's a trap. It has to be. They set up a safe zone, attract survivors and infected, then either they evacuate some people or the whole thing collapses. Either way, we lose our security here. Lila, we can't stay here forever. Elena said gently, eventually, we'll run out of supplies. If there's a real evacuation happening, a chance to reach a larger protected zone, then it'll still be there in a week or a month. We don't have to rush into this. The radio said 72 hours. And how many other broadcasts have we heard that ended in static and screaming? They argued for hours. Marcus wanted to at least scout it out, take the truck, check if the safe zone was real. Elena wanted to pack up everything and go. Trust that the military knew what they were doing. Corey was torn. Lila was firmly against. Please, she said finally, please, let's just wait. Give it 24 hours. If the radio broadcasts continue, if we don't hear any signs of collapse, then maybe we reconsider. But don't rush into this. Reluctantly, they agreed. 24 hours later, the broadcasts continued. No signs of distress. The helicopter made another pass over the neighborhood. Through the periscope, they could see small groups of survivors emerging from houses, heading toward the high school on foot or in cars. People are going, Elena said. They think it's real. Or they're desperate enough not to care if it's real, Lila replied. Day 98 brought a knock on their door at dawn, 3 sharp raps, deliberate and controlled. Marcus checked the periscope. A man in tattered military fatigue stood at the gate, one arm in a makeshift sling, the other holding a black case against his chest. Marcus Carter, the man called. It's Ethan Hale, your old squad mate from Afghanistan. I need your help. Marcus's face went white. He was moving toward the door before anyone could stop him. Dad, wait. That's Ethan. I know his voice. It could be a trap. It's Ethan. Marcus unlocked the gate, and the man stumbled inside. Up close, Lila could see he was in bad shape, covered in dried blood. Bruises, the sling holding his arm was filthy. But he was alive, conscious, and when he saw Marcus, he smiled. Knew I'd find you, you stubborn bastard. Marcus grabbed him in a careful hug, mindful of injuries. What the hell happened to you? Long story. Can we take this inside? I'm about to pass out. They got Ethan into the basement, laid him on a cot. Corey checked him over no bites, but multiple lacerations, a dislocated shoulder that had been poorly reset, signs of dehydration and starvation. "When did you last eat?" Corey asked, holding a water bottle to Ethan's lips. 2 days ago, maybe 3. Time's fuzzy. They fed him slowly crackers first, then soup, letting his body adjust. As he ate, Ethan explained, "I was with a military unit tasked with transporting something important. 5 of us, all reborn people like you who'd lived through this before, remembered it. We had powers, too. I can manipulate metal, not much, but enough to reinforce structures, break locks, that kind of thing." He patted the black case beside him. "This is what we were transporting. The cure." Everyone froze. "The cure?" Elena breathed. "Aerosolized formula. You spray it from altitude and every infected in the dispersal area drops dead. The virus destroys itself, takes the host with it. We were supposed to deliver it to a lab downtown, get it manufactured in large quantities, distribute it globally." "What happened?" Marcus asked. "We got ambushed. The smart infected, they knew we had something important. They herded us, cut us off, picked us off one by one. The others. They died protecting